Wielding his divine power, Zhang Yi finally evinced his terrifying power in a dramatic fashion, striking an undiluted fear in the hearts of all the major forces in Tianhai City. If before, all the leaders of the major forces and the investigation team thought that Zhang Yi only knew how to defend and snipe, and he wasn't particularly good at close combat, then it was obvious now that what they thought was all an illusion, a misdirection to mask his true strength. Now, after witnessing his overwhelming power, no one from the Snow Worship sect dared to act rashly or had any way to counterattack. A few minutes earlier, the priests of the Snow Worship sect protected Zhang Yi behind them with angry faces, and then made a posture of fighting to the death with Zhang Yi. Han Chong of the Snow Worship sect had the most explosive temperament. "Damn you, Zhang Yi, I will kill you." Han Chong bared his teeth and roared, cursing loudly. The atmosphere at the scene still remained tense, and it seems that a fight hadn't broke out immediately because everyone was just waiting for Zhang Yi to explain his actions. Clenching his teeth tightly, Zhang Yi stared at Zhang Yi in pain and asked honestly, "Zhang Yi, why did you do this?" Although he wasn't the most powerful person in Tianhai City, Zhang Yi's ability was telekinesis, so his defense was somewhat decent, and his physique was much stronger than that of ordinary people. But Zhang Yi's move just now was too fast and went straight through his body. Unexpectedly, with the use of the double doors, the angle of the attack just now was not good enough, and due to this, Zhang Yi's heart was not directly penetrated. However, with his chest pierced, he no longer had the strength to fight. So even if his fellow sect members fought, it would be very disadvantageous to them. After all, everyone knew how strong the combat effectiveness of Zhang Yi's team was. On the other hand, the other leaders, especially Xiao Honglian and Wei Dinghai, looked at Zhang Yi with dissatisfaction in their eyes. As Wei Dinghai's frown deepens, he coldly questioned, "Zhang Yi, you need to give us an explanation for this matter. Otherwise, we will not sit idly by." Although they don't care about the life and death of the Snow Worship sect, Zhang Yi's approach was too dangerous. This also made them think that Zhang Yi wanted to take the opportunity to eliminate the major forces in Tianhai City. And for this reason, they had to be on guard. A sinister, yet mocking smile crept on Zhang Yi's lips as he calmly questioned Zhang Yi. Although Zhang Yi has lost his fighting ability and the current situation was slipping out of his control, he was still confident that no one knew about their secret. "Zhang Yi, at this point, are you still going to pretend?" Zhang Yi held his long sword tightly in his hand, and with a sneer on his face and narrowed eyes, he pointed it accusatory at Zhang Yi and said word by word, "Isn't the biggest behind-the-scenes mastermind of the corpse tide in Tianhai City your damn snow-worshipping cult?" These words were spoken with great force, and the content expressed in the words shocked everyone present. Xiao Honglian widened her eyes. What? The mastermind behind the corpse tide is the Snow Worship sect? The investigation team and the other major forces, including the priests of the Snow Worship sect, also showed an expression of disbelief. Han Chong bared his teeth and rushed forward a few steps in the form of a flat-headed brother. He yelled at Zhang Yi, "What nonsense are you talking about? Do you know how many followers our sect has lost in this zombie tide?" Xing Tian also said to Zhang Yi, "Old friend, the Snow Worship sect suffered the most tragic losses in this zombie tide. If they were really the mastermind, they wouldn't do such a stupid thing, right?" Zhang Yi turned his head and looked coldly at Zhang Yi, who was kneeling on the ground, covering his chest. A gloomy and crazy look appeared in Zhang Yi's eyes. He never dreamed that Zhang Yi would discover their secret. "Shut up, you scoundrel. Stop spouting nonsense. Do you really think anyone will believe you?" Zhang Yi laughed. "Whether everyone believes me or not, they will naturally analyze it after I finish speaking. Zhang Yi, what are you afraid of?" After hearing Zhang Yi's words, everyone was finding it difficult to believe it. And although none of them believed Zhang Yi's words to be true, they wouldn't lose anything if they hear him out. After all, Zhang Yi hurt Zhang Yi, not them. And the information Zhang Yi said was too explosive. They all wanted to hear what was going on. Zhang Yi said loudly, "Everyone, from the very beginning, all of this was a conspiracy of the Snow Worship sect. And it all started with the Ice Soul. It's true that the Ice Soul can awaken people's abilities and enhance their potential. But its real function is to allow the superpowers of the person who uses the Ice Soul to return to Yuan Kongya's body after that person dies. That's why they've been so generous in giving us the Ice Soul, and they spared no effort to start a war in Tianhai City, with the goal of killing more people. Even if it's their own followers, it doesn't matter if they are sacrificed. After all, ordinary followers will only be a burden and are inherently worthless. They absorb a large number of followers just to select those with potential to become mutants, and then awaken their abilities. Then let them die so that their abilities would return to Yuan Kongya. So, even if all the members of the sect died, it didn't matter to Yuan Kongye, because from the very beginning, she didn't need so many followers. She has something better to use. That is the zombie army she created. Compared to ordinary humans, this undead army that completely obeyed orders was powerful and not easy to die, and that's her real trump card. Zhang Yi's words made the air quiet. This information was too explosive, and no one could easily believe it. Xing Tian, Xiao Honglian, Wei Dinghai, Bailey Chongqing and his team from the crowd couldn't help but look at him, wanting to get some answers from his face. Zhang Yixin gritted his teeth and said angrily, "You are talking nonsense. Slander. You are slandering us. How could the Snow Worship sect have such a thing? If we really have the ability to control the zombies, why were we suppressed by the other major forces in the first place? Without real evidence, you attacked me based on your own speculations. And based on your actions, I suspect you are the mastermind behind everything." Zhang Yixin pointed at Zhang Yi and said coldly. Everyone at the scene looked at Zhang Yixin, then looked at Zhang Yi and was immediately confused. Zhang Yixin's statement was obviously more in line with their understanding. Back then, the Snow Worship sect was squeezed out by the 4 major bases and could only survive in the cracks, using the ice soul to exchange for breathing space. How could the sect suddenly control hundreds of thousands of zombies in just a few months? If Zhang Yi and Zhang Yixin were more suspicious, then it would undoubtedly be Zhang Yi. After all, Zhang Yi's power is still intact. Zhang Yi said calmly, "There is an abandoned building next to St. John's Cathedral, and there is a huge blood-colored vine in it. Its function is to absorb nutrients from corpses and the earth, and then cultivate corpse kings. The corpse kings have the ability to spread viruses and create zombies. The reason why the people of the Snow Worship sect did not use this trump card before could either be that they didn't want to, or it wasn't time yet, or because the blood vine has not yet fully matured." Zhang Yi pointed his finger in the direction of the headquarters of the Snow Worship sect and said seriously, "Since you say I have no evidence, do you dare to take us to the Snow Worship sect? Dig up the blood vine, and we will know the result at a glance." That's right, hearing is false, seeing is believing. In fact, they all had their eyes on the abandoned building when they were defending the camp of the Snow Worship sect. They also sent people to investigate secretly. It's just that the results of the investigation were not satisfactory. It was found that it was just a mutant plant that could produce food. But Zhang Yi's words immediately aroused their suspicion. Xiao Honglian crossed her arms and said to Zhang Yixin, "Zhang Yixin, if you have a clear conscience, just follow what Zhang Yi said and take us there to have a look." Wei Dinghai also said lightly, "Yes, we will know whether it is true or not. We can also clear your name at that time." Xing Tian nodded. "I agree with this approach." Zhang Yixin's heart sank. He endured the severe pain in his chest and said to Zhang Yi, "If you find that there is nothing there, how are you going to explain what you did? You can't stab me in vain." Zhang Yi's mouth curled up with a sneer. "If we find out that you are innocent, then I guessed wrong. You and your entire cult can come and fight me." Hearing this, Zhang Yixin's eyes became gloomy, and he was extremely furious. Zhang Yi's behavior was too shameless, but he had no other choice. Even the other forces around him didn't think Zhang Yi did anything wrong. It was the end of the world, and killing and looting were common. The major forces had fought to the death, and there were many grudges. They didn't care about Zhang Yi and the Snow Worship sect. They only cared about whether what Zhang Yi said was true. Was the outbreak of the zombie tide related to the Snow Worship sect? Han Chong said angrily beside Zhang Yixin, "Fine, we will do the right thing and take a look at the blood vine. We are not afraid of you, and if we find out that it is not what you said, I will definitely pull your intestines out." Zhang Yixin suddenly shouted in a low voice, "No, we must not let them get close to the blood vine." The group looked at Zhang Yixin, not quite understanding what he said. Although Bailey Chongqing and his team hadn't expressed their opinions all this while, it was not difficult to see from the expressions on their faces that they clearly planned to go there to have a look. After all, they also suspected that there was a problem there at the beginning. It was just that time was limited and they did not have enough of it to observe carefully. What's more, they still didn't know the cause of the corpse tide in Tianhai City, and their beloved captain, Bian Junwu, even died in this whole conspiracy. They didn't want to leave any regrets. So, if they could investigate the cause of the corpse tide and report back, they would be worthy of Bian Junwu's sacrifice and have a way to explain to the top leaders of the Jiangnan region. Bailey Chongqing and his team stared at Zhang Yixin with serious eyes. "Are we not allowed to go? Is there a ghost there perhaps?" At this point, everyone present were all tempted. They wanted to know if what Zhang Yi said was true, and Zhang Yixin's earlier refusal had become suspicious. Xiao Honglian and Wei Dinghai took on a fighting stance when they saw Zhang Yixin on his feet, and again, refused to let anyone investigate the blood vine. Although no one knew about the sudden attack on Zhang Yi, they understood the problem of the snow worship sect. Therefore, everyone was not panicked, but took a stance to fight. Zhang Yi claims that the bloodvine is the foundation of their sect, and Zhang Yi must be planning to take the bloodvine. What if we take them there and they try to snatch the bloodvine? Han Chung roared loudly. Zhang Yi, you are so despicable. We almost fell into your trap. But since you want to fight, then we will fight you. Zhang Yi gave the order for Han Chang and the others to attack Zhang Yi and his team. They should let them know that their sect was not so easy to mess with. The priests believed Zhang Yi's words. And upon hearing Zhang Yi's command, those who had been holding back to fight Zhang Yi immediately rushed up with a howl. More than a dozen priests roared and rushed towards Zhang Yi and his group. Zhang Yi raised a sneer at the corner of his mouth. He really didn't take these scum of the snow worship sect seriously. At this time, Zhang Yi, who had always been steady, rarely walked to the front of the crowd. He covered his eyes with his right hand and said lightly, "Enough! I don't have so much time to entangle with you here now." When he put down his right hand, a white light flashed in the pupil of his eyes, and the people who were stared at by his eyes only felt that the entire space around them was distorted. Suddenly, an indescribable force began to tear their bodies from all angles in the three-dimensional space. Almost at the same time, the upper half of the bodies of the 7 priests exploded on the way forward, turning into blood-colored powder all over the sky. The other priests were so scared that they stood there stupidly. The terrifying scene in front of him made Han Chang, the most courageous one, lose the courage to charge, and his feet halted on the ground uncontrollably. Bailey Chongqing was a little absent-minded when he saw this scene. It's that pupil technique? This was the first time Zhang Yi displayed his divine power in front of outsiders. He had used it during the battle of the 5 major forces, but at that time, his proficiency in his divine power was not high, and he only used it for targeted killing. But now, he has completely mastered this ability, and killed 7 priests of the snow worship sect in one shot. Such a terrible power made Xiao Honglian, Xing Tian, Wei Dinghai and the others dumbfounded. Only then did they understand how powerful Zhang Yi was. His ability had a strong offense and defense. And what's more, his sniping ability also made his long-range assault terrifying. All their previous thoughts about Zhang Yi's ability shuddered like a broken glass. At this moment, Chunlei suddenly pointed to the distance and shouted, "Boss, Zhang Yi is running away." Zhang Yi actually took advantage of the opportunity when the priests charged and turned around and ran away. Zhang Yi, who has telekinesis, can control his body to fly at a very fast speed. Zhang Yi's eyes condensed and he said to Bailey Chongqing and the others, "Not good. He is going back to inform Yuan Kongye. That woman is the most dangerous person in Tianhai City. We must get rid of her. Otherwise, everyone may die after the relationship is torn apart." Bailey Chongqing stared at Zhang Yi. "Why should we believe you?" Zhang Yi replied calmly, "Trust me, you will not lose anything. Whether it is true or not, you will know it when you go and see it yourself. The elites of the Jiangnan region will not be fooled by me so easily, right?" After Zhang Yi finished speaking, he took out his car without caring about them, and called on his team and everyone to head to the camp of the snow worship sect. As for the priests who were lucky enough to survive, such as Han Chang, they were already scared out of their wits, so how could they dare to stop them? Bailey Chongqing thought about it and said immediately, "Let's go and take a look. It's time to put an end to this matter in Tianhai City. We have to find out truth about the situation, and can't let the captain die in vain." The investigation team immediately decided to go and take a look. As for Xiao Honglian, Xing Tian, and Wei Dinghai, they had the same idea. Anyway, so far, this matter has no conflict with them. Since Zhang Yi took the initiative to propose that the snow worship sect was suspected of manipulating the corpse tide, they would go and take a look. They would not suffer any loss. So, everyone found a suitable means of transportation and rushed to the snow worship sect. Meanwhile, at the camp of the snow worship sect, inside St. John's Cathedral Church, Yuan Kongye knelt in front of the altar and prayed devoutly. Suddenly, she opened her bright eyes. Just now, she felt a powerful superpower returning to her body. Whose superpower is this? She questioned with an evident surprise. Pupil technique? It seems to be that of the investigation team leader Bian Junwu. Yuan Kongye's eyes flickered like stars, then calmly returned to normal, and a sweet smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She could clearly feel how strong Bian Junwu's power was. But the next moment, she frowned again. Bian Junwu is dead? How could he die? Who else in the whole Tianhai City can kill him, and who else dares to kill him? Bian Junwu has a special identity and represents the Jiangnan region. His death will also attract the attention of the Jiangnan region. Yuan Kongye frowned. and she vaguely felt that some situations seemed to have gotten out of control. Not long after, in the distance in the air, a figure flew quickly towards the St. John's Cathedral Church. Zhang Yixian's current condition wasn't good. His face was even paler than the heavy snow between heaven and earth. His blood was bright red. A huge blood flower bloomed on his chest, and blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. Although Zhang Yi's sword pierced his chest cleanly, if he had received effective treatment at the time, he could have saved his life. But he knew that if he continued to stay there, their affairs would definitely be exposed. So he had to come back and tell Yuan Kongye everything so she could be prepared. He could die, but Yuan Kongye must not be in trouble. Zhang Yixian landed in front of the church, and as he approached the entrance, one of the mutants who stayed behind and was stationed to guard the entrance of the church saw Zhang Yixian and was shocked by his injuries. But Zhang Yixian didn't even look at him. The guy expressed his concern and offered his assistance. However, this actions only infuriate Zhang Yixian. A murderous look flashed in his eyes that made the guard tremble in fear. Zhang Yixian then walked past him to the door of the church. He didn't have much time, and he had to see Yuan Kongye as soon as possible. He pushed open the door, and almost immediately, Yuan Kongye seemed to feel something and turned around suddenly. She saw Zhang Yixian, who was seriously injured. Yuan Kongye's pupils suddenly shrank, and she walked quickly to his side. Zhang Yixian saw his beloved, and his last breath was mostly lost, so he fell down all of a sudden. If it weren't for the belief in his heart that supported him, he would have died halfway. Yuan Kongye reached out and caught his body. Zhang Yixian, what's wrong with you? For the first time, there was uneasiness in Yuan Kongye's cold voice. As she said that, she reached out to treat Zhang Yixian's injuries. With her ability, as long as the person is still alive, no matter how serious the injury is, she can heal it. However, Zhang Yixian grabbed her wrist. Don't waste your power on me. My injury is too serious. Saving me will consume too much of your energy. Danger is coming soon. If our affairs are exposed, they will kill you. You have to live well. Yuan Kongye's arm stopped in midair and did not fall. Zhang Yixian's face showed a weak smile. He looked at Yuan Kongye's indifferent face, but saw a trace of reluctance in her eyes. Zhang Yixian smiled, and in the end, he understood that Yuan Kongye was not without feelings for him. You have to live well, for our ideals. He fell into Yuan Kongye's arms and slowly closed his eyes. Being able to die in the arms of a loved one, such an ending is not a regret for him, but a kind of happiness. Zhang Yixian finally died and his superpower also returned to Yuan Kongye. Not long after, Zhang Yi and the rest arrived at the camp of the Snow Worship sect. Led by Zhang Yi, Bailey Chongqing, Xiao Honglian and the others immediately walked towards the abandoned building next to the church. On the way there, they passed by the church. Zhang Yi noticed that the door of St. John's Cathedral Church was half closed. He knew that Zhang Yixian must have come to find Yuan Kongye. At this time, Yuan Kongye would definitely be on guard, so it wouldn't be an easy task to attack her. Of course, Zhang Yi had no such plan, because at this moment, no one knew how many kinds of superpowers Yuan Kongye had mastered and how powerful her was. He did not dare to attack rashly. At this point, the problem of the zombie tide should have come to an end. Whether the zombie crisis was caused by the Snow Worship sect, they could tell by looking at it. Zhang Yi led everyone. Come with me, I'll prove it to you.